Grace to you and peace from God who is, who was, and who is to come. Amen. Status quo. Do you know what that means? According to my dictionary, it's the existing condition or state of affairs, or as we might say in more everyday English, status quo means keeping things the same, unchanging. Status quo is also a document that dates from 1757. And this status quo document is between 6 branches of Christianity, and it concerns sites in both Jerusalem and Bethlehem. Now, it came about because of a decree by the Ottoman Sultan Osman III. And the document was designed to preserve the division of ownership and responsibilities of various important sites and represents agreements that nothing could be changed from the way it was without upsetting the balance of order. Did you catch all that? It was reaffirmed in 1852 and again in 1853 and has been in effect ever since. The 6 branches of Christianity that it specifically concerns are the Greek Orthodox, the Armenian Apostolic, the Roman Catholic, the Coptic Orthodox, Syriac Orthodox, and the Ethiopian Orthodox. Those are the 6 branches that control that area, or specifically that control a place called the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Now, the intention behind this status quo document appears to be a good ideal. Hold the peace. But the reality is that these believers in Jesus Christ simply cannot get along. They hold on to their own way of doing things, and their way is, of course, the only true and right way to do things. It's good that Lutherans aren't like that at all. Now, you might have heard of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. There is a ladder on the outside of this building that has been in the same place, on the same ledge, leaning up against the same window since at least 1757. It's referred to as the immovable ladder. None of those 6 groups know exactly who put the ladder there or why it was even put there in the first place. However, according to the status quo agreement, none of them are allowed to touch that ladder. They cannot move that ladder, and so it sits on the outside of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, one of the main holy religious sites in Jerusalem, for the entire world to see as example as to how Christians cannot get along with each other. Status quo. The status quo of Jerusalem means nothing ever changes. Is that what faith calls us to do? Never change anything? To keep everything absolutely the same? Even when we can no longer remember why we're doing something, or when whatever it is that we're doing is no longer achieving anything good? In our Hebrews reading, we're given the example of Abraham and Sarah. Hopefully you remember that story. It happened way back in Genesis chapter 12. God calls Abraham and Sarah because of their faithfulness and tells them that they're going to walk 300 miles to the west to a place that they've probably never heard of to start a new life. God calls them to pull up stakes, gather all of their livestock, get all of their gather their livestock, get their employees, everything they own, all that they've ever known, and go someplace new. God calls them to this venture. God wants them to build something different. Were they afraid? Well, yeah, probably. Yet, they responded in faith. The author of the letter of Hebrews, by faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to set out for a place that he was to receive as an inheritance. By faith, he stayed for a time in the land that he had been promised, living in tents. By faith, he received power of procreation, even though he was too old and Sarah herself was barren, because he considered him faithful who had promised him. And what is faith? Verse 1, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Did you pay attention to what Jesus said to his disciples? Sell everything you own, give the money to the poor, get ready for action, and always be on the alert, because you never know what's going to happen. And in the midst of all of that change and upheaval and preparedness, Jesus tells the disciples, don't be afraid. Do not be afraid, little flock, says Jesus. Yet, how can we not be afraid in this day, in our country, when we can't even go safely to the grocery store? How do we not fear when all we're trying to do is have a nice evening out with friends or loved ones and someone with a grudge opens fire? How are we supposed to not be afraid if we can't even celebrate the latest harvest in safety without worrying if a really angry individual is going to show up? Last week, our entire country had our faith shaken again with shootings in Gilroy and El Paso and Dayton, murderous outpourings by misguided individuals with warped ideologies have once again caused hurt and anger and loss of life. Children became orphans, families lost caregivers. Society has been deprived of productive citizens simply because someone has a distorted view of what a human being truly is. Even so, Jesus tells the disciples, and therefore tells all of us, rock the status quo. Shake things up. Be like Abraham and Sarah. Step out in faith. Don't be afraid. Change is part of life. We're born, we grow, we learn to walk, to talk, to feed ourselves, to express our thoughts and our intentions. We learn how to love, we learn how to be afraid. We expand our brains and our experiences. That doesn't happen if it's all status quo. Change can be scary because it's new or different. And that's part of the reason why we're often afraid of change. Yet, do you know what happens when we don't change? When we don't strive to make things better? What happens when instead we strive to keep the status quo without change? You know what happens? Nothing. Nothing changes. Nothing grows. Everything is always the same. And then we die. John Steinbeck one time wrote, "A dying people tolerates the present, rejects the future, and finds its satisfactions in past greatness and half-remembered glory." That's the status quo, living in the past. Faith does not call us to live in the past. Faith needs to constantly be growing and therefore changing. Jesus tells us, not to be afraid. Hebrews tells us embrace the change that comes from God. Do not be afraid, little flock, for faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Amen.